you stopped being a lawyer because you were being a human.
Right.
Welcome, Shahara. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Now, I know that you are an attorney and you're based out of the Houston area. Tell us a little bit about what you do and who you serve.
So I am a business law attorney. I work with small businesses and nonprofit organizations as general counsel. So that what that really means is I'm just like the legal department for these organizations that can't really afford to have someone full time in house. They hire me to serve as their legal department and handle all of the legal matters that are circulating throughout their organization.
Okay. And you said you're a business attorney, and so
Yes.
that's the gamut of contracts and trademarks and what else?
Yeah, it can kind of spread a lot of different things. Generally speaking, I'm drafting and reviewing contracts. I'm doing trademark applications and monitoring IP, copyright, day-to-day legal advice for my clients. So they have questions or issues, they come to me. We could be some reorganizations in terms of, maybe doing subsidiaries or changing the nature um, of the business, acquisitions, those kinds of things. So it really can. I would say that I'm a generalist specialist. So I'm a business generalist where I do a lot of different things for my clients that kind of work towards their business goals.
All right. What is the biggest mistake you think small business owners make in
I
regards
think the
to
biggest
the legal issues?
I think the biggest mistake that they make is thinking that they don't need support, professional support, right? Because everybody thinks that they can, handle their own books, be their own lawyer, do
Be
this
their own marketer.
only. Yes, they're their own marketer, all of those things that they can do themselves because it all seems easy, right? But obviously, they're experts for a reason. And not bringing in those professional services, I think, causes more problems. At least not bringing them in when they should causes more problems than it helps, and solves.
I was speaking to somebody the other day, and they were of the opinion, different specialty, of course, but they were of the opinion that they should be brought in almost at the inception, like from the idea stage. What do
Mm.
you think about something like that from an attorney? The legal angle. I have an idea. I want to run a business, and whether it's online or brick and mortar, what do you think about that?
So I think that there's some truth to that. I mean, I always tell people, and of course, budget is always an issue and concern. So I recognize that. So I think that if you could put money aside to at least have a consultation with a lawyer to run some of your ideas by, to have some thoughts about what you're trying to do, what things you're going to have kind of a planning session and say, okay, these are some things that I need to look forward to. These are some things that I need to have, even if you don't have all the money to do it right then and there, then at least you have some idea about the trajectory of where you're going to go. I think that's important in that process. So, yeah, I would agree that the sooner you engage an attorney, the better. I know that kind of scares a lot of business owners and nonprofits because they're like, oh, the money. But I think that there's a way that you can do that and still have the support that you need so that you can ensure that as you grow your business, you don't cause undue problems.
Well, that leads me to this question, that undo issues thing. I've heard that there is a huge, well, how are they a legal services firm? They're an online, they rhyme with room, and apparently they cause some business owners problems. Do you run into having, those kind of issues where you're having to go back and fix things?
Occasionally, I do. I find more than using the room, people tend to do things, on their own and kind of hodgepodge contracts, and it's usually the contract writing that causes the most issues. And so I think that there's a place, right, for everyone and everything. And I understand, again, budget being very important to small business owners and trying to decide about utilizing legal services. But the thought that, again, you need this contract that everybody thinks is easy and simple, and all the pitfalls that come along with that, having an attorney who understands your business, who understands your market, who understands, what you're trying to do, to draft something particular to your business to ensure that you are protected and how you do business is important. And I think, again, understanding that these things cost, they take time. I tell people, drafting contracts, it seems easy. And yes, you probably are working from a form, but you still have to adjust and make things different for each client, for each scenario. That takes expertise, that takes skills. Contract writing is not something that, I know it seems like everybody can do it, but it really is a skill. And so I think that as business owners, myself included, that we have to kind of think about, okay, I need someone to ensure that this is adjusted specifically for my business. And so when you get to the point to where, off the rack doesn't work anymore, utilizing somebody to customize your contracts is really important.
All right. You said a couple of things in there I want to dial into, and that
Okay.
is the use of contracts. Um, in our previous discussions, you said that there are 5 contracts that every business owner needs, right? What
Yeah.
are those 5 contracts?
So first, I would say you would need an independent contractor agreement. Now, I would say this kind of goes two ways. And to the next one, I'm going to just mention it and say how they work together is a service agreement if you're a service provider. So let's just say, as a service provider, I'm just going to use a graphic designer. You have your own service agreement and how you do business, and you present it to your clients, and your clients sign that. That's one thing. Let's say that you're a graphic designer and you're hiring other graphic people to help you with your agency or whatever you're doing, and they don't have their own contract. You need an independent contractor agreement that you have ready and prepared to have them sign to work for you. So you need to have both of those things, right? Those two. Also want to have for your website 2 different agreements. I usually recommend 3, but 2 I think are the most important. One is your privacy policy. This is imperative to businesses, especially that you're doing business online, which should be just about everybody. That you have, a privacy policy. Um, the states are now looking to put in their own particular privacy laws, that because here in the U.S. we don't have like one particular privacy law, one giant one. We have a hodgepodge of laws. So it's important to have a privacy policy that takes all of that into account because you're doing business across various states. And then a website terms of use, which is different from the privacy policy. Privacy talks about how data is collected, how it's used, who has access to it, those kinds of things. But
Mhm.
your terms of use policy really tells you how people can access, your content. If you have like a membership site and people are accessing um, forms, or they're accessing videos and things like that, what they can and can't do, how they use their membership, how they can lose access to the website, those kinds of things is the terms of use of the site. And then last but not least is the NDA, which is the non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement. Now, this is not some kind of blanket contract that you just give to any and everybody that you run across, right? You want to make sure that it truly is to protect confidential information. So going back to my graphic designer uh, example, the graphic designer would use that confidentiality agreement maybe to give to their contractor who has access to their client's information, right? So you want to ensure that that's confidential. You may have other people that have access to information that you have, that you want to ensure that keeps confidential. So it's to keep confidential information confidential. And if it's not confidential, then it doesn't protect that. But definitely, I think that all businesses need to have these types of agreements.
Oh, they certainly need to have them, but don't you cringe in the news when you hear about these large companies and they've been hacked and all your personal information is now out there on the you know the black hat sites?
Yeah, it's definitely a risk. I mean, obviously, with the advent of the internet and all of these different technological opportunities for technological advances, opportunities for hackers, are prevalent, right? And that's just a risk, obviously, that we have. And the more information we put and keep in our phones, keep on our computers,
Hmm.
the risk gets greater and greater and greater. I think that a lot of companies obviously are mandated to do more to protect cybersecurity and to do more to protect their data. But as small business owners, we have a responsibility as well, that we have to protect our data as well. And so we have to do things in addition to ensuring that not everybody has access to our clients' information, do the encryptions, do all of those things. We have a responsibility too, because small business owners are the large part of the hacked community because we don't have the resources to put the protections in. So it's important to do that, and having policies around how you handle data is very important.
I will tell you this, having built many, many websites and being on the back end of them, that there are almost every site that's built on, doesn't matter what kind of platform really, but you can see when people are trying to get into your site, right? There's this you can see how many login attempts there were, how what where in the world they're actually coming from based on IP addresses. And if your web guy is not locking down your website and hardening the whole infrastructure of it, you're leaving yourself open to being hacked. And while on the surface you may not notice anything, you may have millions of pages that are, being used on the back end that could be costing you a fortune
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
and or ruining your internet reputation.
Yeah, and I mean, there's statistics that, that people, individuals, users, buyers really pay attention to that. And once they find out that you're hacked, they don't want to do business with you. And that's a real problem. And so for small business owners, they probably have lots of times where there's been phishing incidents or email incidents or some kind of incident that they had, but they don't have the skill set or knowledge to ensure that, one, that they notify their people that this has happened, and then two, ensure that it doesn't happen again. And so I think that as small business owners, we have to pay much more attention to that. It's a real problem
Mhm.
that is not discussed enough in the small business community.
Do you do anything or recommend business owners do anything with the American Disabilities Act as far as websites and accessibility?
Well, I mean, I think that you obviously need to comply with it. I am not a website tech person, so whatever I tell you to do is probably going to be completely wrong and not in accordance to how it's actually done. But you definitely want to make sure that you comply, and I think that most of these sites do comply with what's required. Additional things that I would say that you want to do, especially if you have audio, to have like closed captions, other things like that you can do to help enhance the experience of those with disabilities. Larger font, not having a site with like tiny, tiny font where you can't really read it. Those kinds of things I think are some basic things that you can do. As far as functionality and things like that, I believe that most of the sites, kind of come with some basic functionality, and you can definitely go to your website designer to ensure that they are meeting the codes and requirements to do that. I know that there's a lot of kind of farms out there that just go around suing small business owners for not being compliant, and there's not really much you can do about that, except to just try to make sure that you are compliant, and checking that at least once a year to make sure that you've kept up and your website's functioning properly.
Yeah, the legal trolls or they found a new niche.
Yes, yes,
I mean,
it's
that's
always there.
yeah. All right, so you're a remote legal office, correct?
Yeah, I have an actual office. I tell people I have an actual office. I just don't go. So yeah, I have an actual office, but in 2015, my office mate, I share an office with another attorney. You know, we decided that we would kind of make our office space into more of a conference room and just go meet clients in there and stuff like that. So I moved myself home, and started working from home, and then would meet clients, in the office when I needed to. And of course, I was using, online platforms such as Zoom and all of those kinds of things. And then when the pandemic hit, nobody was at the office. And
That's for
so
sure.
yes, and then the clients really got used to working via Zoom and got used to being able to communicate via online. And I didn't have as many demands that, I meet people in person, or, oh, I want this, that, I want to talk to and touch and see my attorney. And so that really just changed a lot for us, where we were already kind of partially remote. We've just mostly gone remote. Like I very rarely go to the office except for check mail and, say hi to my office mates, and, and then I come back to the house. But, it's also opened doors for me, because clients, throughout the US, and even other countries are like, okay, I don't feel like I have to see and touch, and have my attorney right here. And so I have clients throughout the U.S., and that's made a big difference, because I think the comfortability of working remotely has opened doors, at least for my business, to allow me to be able to reach more people.
Okay, I love that answer because I felt the same way. I've been doing this almost 14 years, and one of the tenets of my business is, even though I do, have done mostly local business, I don't do it locally.
Yeah.
And the reason is like, you want me to drive all the way across town in Atlanta and meet you for 30 minutes where you're probably going to be late, and then I have to drive all the way back. I don't have a half a day. I don't have a half a day for you. And you're in Houston, I'm sure you have the
Yeah.
same kind of issues. Like,
Yes, the running joke in Houston is an hour away from Houston. So
yes, yes.
it's definitely far. No matter where you go, you got to be prepared to drive at least 45 minutes to get anywhere. So yeah, I mean, it definitely makes a difference. I mean, every now and again I'll have, people they'll say, oh, I want to meet in person, but I just say, hey, no, we meet via Zoom, consultations via Zoom, communications via Zoom, everything we need to do is transactional. It's not necessary to actually meet in person. Now, I have done so. I've met several of my clients in person, for to support them in their ventures and things like that. But I think for meeting purposes and communication purposes, being remote and online where you can see each other, is really sufficient.
Yeah, I think COVID really just, got the rest of the world up to speed with people like us,
Yes.
right? We already
Yes.
knew we could do this, right? We already knew that
Right.
we could do Zoom or, some, team viewer. There was all kind of manners of ways for us to be able to communicate and talk and actually see each other, right? We could see
Right.
each other. Um, and then COVID came out, and two things happened. One, they had to stay home. They found out they were not essential workers. That
Right.
must have been a shock, right?
Yes.
And the second thing is they realized that, well, wait a second, I can work from home. I can do the things that I want to do from home because
Right.
I don't, what is an office providing, right? And if you're a small business owner, unless you're a brick and mortar retailer, um, they found out there really was no need to have and maintain that office.
Right.
So you mentioned that you're able to get clients now from other places in the U.S. and the world. Um, how have those relationships been able to be fostered by the fact that you can have Zoom meetings versus meeting in person?
I think it's made it almost easier access, right? Because, really all my clients got to do is schedule a time. I have a booking link that they have open to schedule a time anytime they want to just go schedule and, hey, we have a meeting, as opposed to having to go back and forth and stretch, like you said, all the way down and those kinds of things. It makes it really easy. So a 15-minute conversation, a quick question, obviously they've always had access to email and those kinds of things, but it's really just, made it, hey, it's easier for me to communicate with you because now I know I don't have to make this big trip to the office to have a conversation. This just makes everything easier. So I think that's made a big difference. And then I think too, just knowing, saying, hey, even if I know, I'm just using this example, I have a attorney in California and I'm in Texas, then, I don't have as much anxiety about working with someone in California because I'm fearful of what will happen because I can't see and touch them, right? I'm much more open to doing business across states because now I've learned that that's a process anyway. Even if they were here, I would be doing the exact same thing. So I think that anxiety around, especially with professional services, about feeling like you had to be in the office and look at them in the face and be in their space, has changed from a client perspective, that people are much more willing to be open to having someone that's not necessarily right near them.
Are you familiar with the writer Malcolm Gladwell? He
No,
wrote
I'm not.
Blink and some other
Oh,
things, but one of his books focused on the fact that people who are supposed to be experts at judging other people, police officers, judges, 95% of the time are wrong, right? And so it's like when we meet somebody, we form these instant impressions of who they are and what they are, what their character is. And generally, according to Malcolm Gladwell, we're all wrong. We're all completely wrong because I cannot possibly know what's going inside of your head, what's going on, what kind of experience you had, to this morning, last night, 6 months ago. I have no idea what kind of filters you see the world through. And so the idea that somebody actually needs to meet you in person to form an impression, like, you're dude, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. The statistics show that you're wrong. Your ability to judge another human doesn't exist. And the only way in my opinion, the only way we can actually, really understand each other is actually having a conversation.
Yeah, I think it's important. And I think, being able to communicate and get your point across and show people who you are and build that trust, even through, a tablet or a computer, is a skill in and of itself. And it's important, I think, just the same as being in person. And so I think that need, again, to kind of be in front of people, I think the pandemic has shown people that that's not necessary to build trust.
Yeah, yeah. They've realized that they can form the impressions just like this.
Yes.
We were
Yes.
wrong all along.
Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned something about in the conversation about remote meetings and working with clients, um, expectations and methods of communication. All right, so clearly, if you have a calendar and you want your clients to schedule time to speak with you, you don't like phone calls interrupting your business?
No, I don't. Well, I never was a phone person. Let's be clear. And so I'm very much an introvert. So the phone thing was never a thing that I enjoyed. So the more and more I started convincing my clients, hey, email me, email me, email me, email me. And so that's, made a big difference. And most of them do. Really hasn't been so big of a deal. Maybe email or text or something like that, and say what they need or ask a question, and we can converse, that way. And then if they feel like it's something really important, or I'm saying like I can't really answer this in an email, there's too much back and forth, let's schedule a call. Then it's really easy for us to do so they can just schedule time. And a call just means Zoom. That's what we call a call now, is Zoom. let's schedule, a call and let's talk this through and talk this out. And, that seems to be working really well. I feel like, my clients, one really appreciate that, and it makes them easier because you're talking about really busy people who may have a particular issue that's happening. They have a question or a set of questions and don't want to rearrange their whole day just to, get something done. And if I say, hey, I can't answer this right now, I need a little bit of time, then nobody's wasted any energy to make sure that that happens. So, it's really easy for us to make that to accommodate our clients with either email or scheduling a Zoom meeting.
Well, I think, Shahara, that what we're talking about and how you do business and manage expectations and do the meetings and remote work, these are all the things that small business owners should be looking at for themselves.
Right.
Right? These are the things that will allow them to have more time, more control of their time. Um, I mean, come on. I'm in Charleston, which is like a little bitty burg compared to Houston. But we have two rivers and an ocean, right? We have two rivers and an ocean, and we have these bridges, and that makes traffic really difficult to maneuver at any time of the day, right?
Right.
It's like, for whatever reason, you might want to go what the map says is 10 miles, but it's a 45-minute trip,
Right.
and then you have to come home,
Right.
right? So it's like, hey, small business owners, guys, look, now again, I want to differentiate brick and mortar retail stores. They're different. They have to go there, and they
Yeah.
want people to go and visit them. That's their thing. But everybody else, maybe not so much. Manufacturers, maybe, yeah. But even if you're a brick and mortar, shouldn't you have an online section to sell
Oh yeah. I mean, I
sell
think
your
even,
things?
for brick and mortar, the online, you know, online portion, it really makes a huge difference. And for people to be able to, there's a restaurant that I like, but they are really slow. Um, and so I just order online and I'm like, okay, it's going to take an hour. Great. So I know hour before I feel like I'm going to be hungry, I'm going to order from here on their online, and then I can go there and pick it up. And that would make such a difference as opposed to if I had to think about, oh, I have to go here, I'm going to have to wait an hour, it's going to be a forever for my food, then I'm not deciding, do I really want to go? Now I'm making these decisions. Convenience, call it laziness or just call it time management, whatever you want it is, it's just really a big deal. And I think that for all, even brick and mortar, yes, you want people in the stores, but I think specifically for restaurants, I think you'll always kind of have that foot traffic kind of thing, assuming your food's good, right? That people want to come in and sit down and talk. But you can also have that online version that gives you so much more revenue because it gives people access to your restaurant that probably wouldn't want to come in and sit down. I mean, people that sell, widgets or products or whatever else, you're going to have your store that you want people to come in and shop. But to have an online store that you can ship, I think that's just a requirement that you have to have that, or else you just are not going to be able to be sustainable without a part of that practice. So I think for any business, whether you 100% online, you're hybrid, or you're specifically in person, you have to have some type of online remote presence and a way to communicate with people, even if it's not necessarily Zoom, but you have, your email sequences, this is just all kind of, I think, a regular part of marketing that standard, that I think is now that you got to have, or else you're not going to be able to survive.
You said email sequences and a regular part of marketing. I'm going to tell you right now that is not a regular part of marketing for most
I know
people.
it should be.
It's like, I was speaking with a guy who helps businesses increase their value before they get sold, right? And one of the main things that people buy when they buy a business is your book of business. It's your customer
Right.
list. But that customer list has no value today if you don't have a way to contact them, if you don't have a list of who they are, what they purchased, how to communicate with them, have you been in touch with them? I've I worked with a company that's been in business for 26 years, and they were in the communications business. They had 11,000 customers, and they didn't have an email list.
Wow.
Like, guys.
Yeah, you got to do it. I mean, and I'm not, and I'll tell you, this is kettle, kettle black, all that kind of stuff, right? I have a list. I have, email lists. I don't email them all the time. I don't email my clients all the time. I tell people I can barely get them to read the important emails, much less, if I start sending out marketing emails, it's definitely going to get ignored. So I don't really send a lot of emails, but there's a list, and if I need to send a mass email, I can send a mass email. It's from people that have contacted me, past clients, those kinds of things. I think it's necessary. And then there's people that, kind of have all of their business on some online marketing platform like Facebook or Twitter or, whatever. And then you don't have a list. And if you get shut down or something happens, you have no way of communicating with these people. So, I mean, I think that just from an even business sense, right, that these are things that have to happen in order for you to sustain your business. I mean, it is marketing, but I don't think it's just marketing, right? I mean, it's just a way to sustain your revenue to ensure that if one of these avenues of communication is cut off, you still have another way of communication. And so I think that that's necessary for you to do and prudent for any business to do it.
Brilliant point. Brilliant point. It's like if your business is built on the foundation of a platform you don't control,
right?
Yeah, that's kind of tricky, and it doesn't matter if it's Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or, really the only one, even Google. I mean, that the Google Business Profile has proven to be the most sustainable platform of all of them. But it's still subject to Google whims and Google algorithm
Right.
changes. And, it's like, well, what was good 2 years ago, we don't allow anymore. And all of a sudden your phone calls dry up. You find out, well, what happened? Oh, well, our profile got taken down. Why? Mm, Good luck. Good luck. Good luck trying to
Right.
find out.
Right.
But the idea though is that you're right. It's like you have to build a some type of CRM so that you can A, maintain the list, B, communicate occasionally, let them know you're alive, but more importantly, make another offer,
Right.
right? Make another offer. And I will tell you that, in my opinion, today, this is where you need to be communicating. Emails
Ah,
only
really?
emails only get opened about 35% of the time. That's open,
Yeah.
not read.
Right.
The text messages get read 98% of the time within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So this is how people want to communicate, at least for the initial set of communications,
Yeah.
especially 45 and under, right?
Right.
But even old folks like me, I don't want to get on the phone and listen to you blather on about, you. I'm calling about me,
Right.
right? Um, Anyway, that's what all the studies say. So it's just like, well,
I
all
think
right,
that's true. Yeah.
if you're a business owner, you might really think about doing something with texting and SMS.
Yeah.
And it's like, you go to a restaurant and you see the people at their tables, right? What are they doing?
Right.
They're not on the phone, right? But they're
Right.
on the phone.
Right.
So anyway, so tell me about networking and live events. You mentioned something about this is a way you like to go out and be seen. What kind of events do you do?
Yeah. So I go to conferences, not a lot of conferences, but I'll attend certain conferences with other business owners. I speak at events. So I do some trainings, like I do training with the Small Business Development Center here in Houston. I do trainings for an organization in Virginia called VWIC. I do also like speaking engagements. I have one that I'll be at in December where I'll be speaking about partnerships and profits and things like that. And I do CLEs, continuing legal education for attorneys on certain topics. So this is kind of how I get out and be seen. I find that for the type of client that I serve, this makes the most sense. I do have a social media presence, and I do I could probably do a little bit more, but in terms of like lives and things like that. But occasionally I'll do those as well, just to kind of give some educational backgrounds and things like that. But networking for me, in-person networking for me is really a big game changer. Now, during the pandemic, I did obviously see a uptick in like groups and people chats and stuff like that, because it made such a big difference for people because you couldn't get out and network. That has been a big deal for me as well.
Okay. Um, do you participate in like virtual events and virtual conferences?
Sometimes, but not a lot. I do some, but again, very few. Unless I'm like speaking, I don't normally just kind of participate. Like I'll do some like that are small groups, that maybe that's just around this particular conversation, and so maybe like 10 to 12 people are there. I tend to do better with smaller groups, in terms of just kind of getting to know people as opposed to this big sea of things. Like I mentioned before, I'm an introvert, so my ability to communicate with lots of people at the same time is limited. So I prefer small group events and smaller things where it's not a whole lot of people, but then I can get to know the people in the room, and I feel like once I get to know people and I'm able to present myself, then that eventually will turn into business.
So doing interviews and things like this, where it's just me and you, but you're
Yes.
going to be seen,
Yes.
we hope, by a lot of people.
Yes. This is fine. I could do this all day. But yeah, but you know how it is. You go into this conference, it's like 1,000 people, and it's just like a sea of people, and you're like, where do I go? Who do I talk to? And I remember going to one event where there's lots of people. I was a speaker, but my business coach at the time was like, oh, you need to make sure that you go and introduce yourself and meet people. So I was just awkwardly standing around tables randomly waiting for somebody to say hi to me, because I was so awkward. It was so weird. Because I didn't know how to like just go and say hi, I'm Shahara. Like I didn't know how to do that, so I was struggling. So I try to avoid just standing around random tables like a weirdo until somebody says hi. Like I try to avoid situations like that. So this is good.
Well, there's an interesting parallel between what you just said and what many entrepreneurs think they're doing online.
That's true. That is true. That
They
is
they
true.
it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna build a website. I'm gonna put all my information out there, and then I'm just gonna wait for people to come on by and say hello. It doesn't really work like that.
Right.
It doesn't really work like that. Same in social media is the same way, right?
Right.
You can have your Facebook page or your personal profile. You can have your YouTube page, but just putting it out there doesn't really make people come by and say hello.
No, you got a good point. That is so true.
You have to, at a certain point, you have to play the game, right? And in networking and in person, you it takes it. I think more extroverted people do better in those type of environments.
Right.
I think introverted people, I pretty much feel like I'm one. Um, I think we do better when we can do the more one-on-one type of conversation.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree with that.
and the thing about social media is that it has allowed us to do that, right? The TikTok is less so, but man, it's very popular. I mean, it is so crazy how many views you can get on a piece of 30-second content. It is absolutely crazy. And I really just was not interested in TikTok until I found out that and you mentioned business coach. Well, I was in my mastermind, and we had a guest speaker, and this female who was over 45 was selling of all things, life insurance through her audience on TikTok.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, wait a second. I know how difficult selling life insurance is. Personally, I know how difficult that is. People don't want to talk about death or dying or, the
Right.
ramifications of that. And you're getting an audience in lead generation on TikTok? Okay, wait, mind blown. I have to look at what's going on over there, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing with social media. We have these impressions of what is going on, and they may not be true. All right. Generally,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's probably a lot of, younger kids doing weird things and dancing and uh, cleavage and, all of that, right? Yeah, there's a lot of that. But you also have the Gary V's of the world who are just pumping out a ton of content. The Grant
Right.
Cardones of the world, they're just pumping out a ton of content. And they're getting 100,000, 150,000, 200,000 views. It's like, well, wait a second. I may not be able to do that, but I may be able to do something else,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there is a war going on right now. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a war going on between TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, and by extension, Instagram, with short video content.
Yes, that I'm aware. Yes.
I mean, it is a literal war. And YouTube has made 2 changes in the last 30 days that are fantastic for short form creators. And the more content you put out there, the more they're pushing it out. And they, the way I understand it, you put out a short form video, and somebody who watches it, the recommendation is going to be your long form video.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So they're building bridges, to for the short term to the long term content, which I think is fabulous,
Yeah, that's
right?
great. Yeah.
So anyway, all right. So you ready for those special questions?
I guess so.
They're not that bad. They're not that
Okay.
bad. All right. What's something important to your daily routine you wish you had started sooner?
Oh, wow. Um I try to just like take about 5 minutes to myself before I do anything. Like, just even when I first wake up, I used to like I still kind of do, but just check my email. So I'm trying to just like, okay, I'm up 5 minutes just to adjust my mind and then go because I'm usually just up out the bed and then go, go, go. So that's been something that's been helpful.
Okay. I'm struggling with that as well. All right. What are the biggest struggles you face today, and how can I or any other, entrepreneur start thinking about those ahead of time?
Oh, well, I mean, I I guess really it's more personal than business. I'm a single mom. I have a son who's ADHD and he requires a lot of time and energy. And so one of the reasons I started taking my 5 minutes is, I had to, know that like I had to manage myself and somebody else. And so I think that the self care and paying attention to, how you're feeling and what's going on with you is important because I think that we're so busy doing that we don't take a time to kind of see how we're feeling, and that affects your business overall. So I think that would be something that I would say that as other business owners, kind of think about what's impacting your life, to take a step back and give yourself some space to kind of feel all the things that you're dealing with.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. All right. Last one. What's something you didn't pay attention to or ignored early that you then had to learn the hard way?
Oh gosh. So funny story. Well, not really funny, but just coincidentally. So I'm going through this situation with a board that I'm on. I serve on, I have served on several nonprofit boards, and I had one several years ago that I got on. Realized I didn't like it, the people, and I ended up quitting. And then I was like, okay, I'll never do that again. And then here I am back again with a board that I got on, and I realized, yeah, this is not what I should have done, and I'm getting ready to quit. And it wasn't, I didn't ask the right questions, right? Here's the lawyer that didn't ask the questions that should have been asked prior to getting on the board. So this is kind of like an anomaly, but I think before walking into situations thinking that it looks rosy and it looks great and oh yeah, everything's like clicking, to ask the right questions every single time and not think, oh, I don't have to do that because, this seems great and I don't need to ask these questions. So that would be the same. It's random, but that's something that's real that I'm dealing with right now.
Well, look, that I have to do a follow-up on that because I think when we're involved in our own thing, we start being myopically focused, and that's where we can't see the trees or the forest for the trees. And we start paying attention to certain granular details, but we're losing sight of the overall big picture. And that's where we need coaches.
Yeah.
Right? That's where we need somebody who can see what I'm not even looking at.
Right.
Because what you described is like, you're saying, well, even I as a lawyer, no, you're a human, and you're looking at your own thing, and it's like you stopped being a lawyer because you were being a human.
Right. Yes.
And that was not intentionally a shot at that was not intentionally a shot at lawyers.
Yes. Let me put my human and be a lawyer over here. Yes, I got it.
But I think, it happens to people, like me in marketing. It's like,
right.
We're great at marketing and helping somebody else craft their offer and their messaging and, the best place to put it. But for ourselves, maybe not so much.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
I think that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. They just get so, we talked about, when should they hire an attorney? When should they hire a marketer? When should they hire a coach? Right? Well, they're so busy doing the things that they need to do that they don't see that they have a need to hire those things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, I don't have time to be messing with that. It's like, well, if you want to grow your business, you're going to have to find time to hire an employee and train them. Right? But I don't have time to hire an employee and train them.
Right. Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, but what do you want? You want to continue working 80, 90 hours a week and being stressed out and not have time with your family? Or would you like a change?
You gotta, it's like one of those things, right? The chicken or the egg, but I think you gotta do it. And I think as business people, we have to learn how to make these choices, and we tend to not make them until we're hurting. And that's not the time to make those choices, right? That's when we make bad choices because we're making it, from a hurt place as opposed to a positive place. So we definitely have to learn how to make choices sooner. So yeah, I'll change my answer. That's one of those lessons.
You can change your answer. Not allowed. Not allowed.
No. Okay.
Okay, Shahara, tell us your firm name, where you are, who you serve, and where we can find you.
So yeah, I am Shahara Wright. That's Shahara, like a desert with the extra H. And you can go to my website, thewrightlawyer.com, and Wright is WRIGHT, so thewrightlawyer.com. The name of my firm is The Wright Firm, PLLC. And I tell you this because there's another firm in Texas called The Wright Firm, and they're a PC or something like that, so it can be confusing, but I'm the Wright Lawyer. And so you can just Google my name, Shahara. And so you can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn as the Wright Lawyer, and on Instagram it's the Real Wright Lawyer. And that's me. That's where you can find me. So any of those places, the website, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I'm on all of those places, the Wright Lawyer.
All right. And who's your ideal client? Who do you serve?
So my ideal client would be a business or a nonprofit that's kind of in their growth stage, and making a mil to 3 mil, to looking to grow. They need ongoing legal services, need some more legal support, ready to stop being their own lawyer and have somebody that's purely focused on their business. That's my ideal client.
Awesome. I appreciate your participation. Thank you for showing up and being so entertaining.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.